Here are the best characters, keepsakes, and second awakenings ranked on a tier list as of October 2023 in no particular order. So let's get into it. Before we begin, there have been a total of 6 new characters that have been released since my last tier list video, so before I rank them I am going to give a quick summary on the updated tier list. If you haven't checked already, watch my previous tier list video to understand my reasoning for each character's rank, as I'll only be going through the changes and new characters in this video so that these videos are a lot shorter from now on. So in terms of downgrade, Zombie Man has gone down from S to A tier, since he's no longer the main hero core but can still be useful in PvE and in 3-team game modes. And Melzagard went down from A to B, because the Giru meta will be dying, so he'll only really be useful in villain game modes if you don't have any exclusive lssr espers. Now Genos will still be staying in the S tier since the Mega Whales are still able to pierce through Bengpu's shields, however he won't be going up in the SS tier since only a select few of people can do so. The majority of Genos users won't be able to shred through those shields, so he'll still be staying in the S tier for now since he is quite useful in other game modes. Now in terms of upgrades, Magic Trick Man has been upgraded from C to B, since he can slot in nicely as your duelist slot for Bengpu's core. Lightning Genji has also increased from B to A, since his passive fits in super well as a support high-tech unit for Bengpu's core. Awakened Vaccine Man has also jumped from A to S, because his force field and detonation can be very useful in dealing damage straight away through Bengpu's shields. And finally, Goketsu will also be increasing from A to S, since his shield rate passive will buff the percentage of Bengpu's resilience shields, so he is another great support character for Bengpu. But he is pretty hard to slot in since the grappler type is quite competitive at the moment, but he still is a solid character and makes them tanky, so he belongs in this tier. Now I also have 3 new SRs that I didn't include in my last video to put on the list since they are good for early game players. So Mosquito Girl is a decent core in early game, as she'll be able to revive one ally and grant tons of energy during the second round, so she is quite a useful core if you are starting off in the game. Lightning Max is also a very solid unit that will be able to stun your enemies whenever his target is inflicted with burn, where if you have his Keepsake, he will instead always be able to stun that enemy whenever he uses his ult, so his Keepsake is a good investment. And finally, Fist Fight Jin is a new SR character that is able to grant an extra energy for your team in the first 2 rounds, as well as being able to heal your allies, so he is also a great character to have early game. Now I'll be going through the 6 new characters that have been put into the game throughout September and October. So firstly we have Bengpu, which I will be slotting into the S tier. Now Bengpu's core is a massive game changer, so he should be ranked higher in the top tier, but I'll have to put him in the tier under, so I'm not discrediting his core, as his core is still way better than Giro's in most scenarios. But Bengpu as a unit is pretty trash. The only good thing about him is his passive, which will help out your team against those low hit attackers like SSR Genos, or the support minions from units such as Child Emperor. Bengpu still has the best core though with his resilience shield, since they do a massive difference in both PvP and PvE, don't get me wrong. However, during the early stages of his era, Genos is still able to win in PvP game modes from those heavy spending players who can legit put 700 plus sacks into him and completely max him out, alongside with Giro's core. So Giro's core can still beat Bengpu's core early game. This is until we get ssrplus units such as Boros or Carnage Kabuto. So as of the time being, Bengpu does belong in the S tier and Genos does also belong in the S tier. So this is my reason why Bengpu is in the S tier. Solid units, just useful for his core. That's all he really is, so he belongs in this tier for sure. Next up we have Drive Knights, who will also be going into the S tier. So due to his poor release debut being locked behind a paywall that will last at least 3 weeks to obtain 80 of his shards, not that many people have been able to obtain him. However, he does still belong in the S tier, as he is a very good high tech that slots very well with force field units during the Bengpu era. He's great with Bengpu to add additional ult damage reduction for your entire team to make them much more tankier, and he's also great with force field units such as ATT or AVM, as he can deal up to 1320% of his attack depending if you have pulled for his Keepsake or not. What also makes him viable in this era is that his ultimate completely goes through Bengpu's shield, so he does have the potential to one-shot the front line if he is highly invested into. Now, he is outshined by Child Emperor Plus as the main high-tech only because of his poor release schedule as well as being locked behind a paywall instead of the rumoured free units during the overhyped first anniversary, so he didn't have enough time to shine through this meta, unfortunately. However, he is still going to be useful alongside Bomb and with ATT during your hero-only game modes, which will last for more than a year, so he can confidently be slotted into the S tier for the time being. Next up, we have Gale Wind, who definitely belongs in the top SS tier. He just provides great utility for your teams in both PvP and PvE. His stunning capabilities have been a massive contributor in advancing through Mirage Trials, and if you have his Keepsake, you're just having a laugh. Being able to position him strategically in PvP, where you can guarantee stuns to all of those enemies on the side, or being able to stun smack down the middle with a 1 in 8th chance in getting that 4th additional stun if you do have a formal set equipped. Now in PvP, you do need that speed combo with Sonic V2 or you will be dominated otherwise, as this speed era isn't going to disappear in PvP for a very long time. Now the bad thing about his release was that he was released right before the long-awaited ssrplus era, so many people did have to skip him in order to save up their black tickets for the upcoming future ssrplus characters, or they went all in pulling Sonic V2 the month prior. Otherwise, he's an amazing unit, very powerful with the Sonic V2 combo, and he definitely belongs in the top tier. And our final lssr, much like Drive Knight, we have Hellfire Flame. He was also locked behind the 3-week paywall who was released during the beginning of the anniversary, so as of this recording, no one has been able to obtain him still as of yet. But I will give you my input about him since you'll barely see him at all other than the whales who are getting him just for his figurines, so he will be ranked into the A tier. Now you might be asking yourself, his orange shields absorb force field damage and charge, how could you rate him this low? Well, because he needs massive investment in order to be good, otherwise he will die and become utterly useless. Since speed is highly sought after in PvP, Sonic V2 is a much better duelist than Hellfire if you could only have one duelist in your team. Also, Hellfire is a solid counter against ATT, but so is Child Emperor, as his passive also negates debuffs, as well as granting crit to his row. Oh, and also Hellfire legit has no effect against Child Emperor, since he deals direct damage, so Child Emperor is literally treating Hellfire like he isn't even there, since he'll still do the same amount of damage with and without Hellfire with Bengpu's core. So to sum him up, he is a very expensive unit. Only whales should be getting him if they don't have Sonic V2. He does counter ATT, but he does not counter Child Emperor, so he'll be ranked in the A tier, and that is as good as that. Now finally, we have the long-awaited ssrplus era that finally rolled out during the anniversary. So first of all, we have Bakuzan Plus, which will be going into the S tier. Now I know he's an ssrplus character and all, but like, he doesn't deserve to be ranked at the top, since there are literally better LSSRs that are way better than Bakuzan. But he still does belong in the S tier since he is a solid unit, his charge damage to a column is very handy against Bengpu shields, and him being able to remove the attack boosts of your enemies can be quite useful. But he can still die fairly quickly. I've seen many instances in Live Clash where regular teams can still kill off Bakuzan pretty easily. He's still vulnerable and not overpowered for an SSR+, but he's still a solid unit to have for beginning players if you were unfortunate or dumb enough to awaken him, unfortunately. He's not a meta character, but he's just a good unit to use against Bengpu shields, so he does belong in the A tier. And finally, we have the SSR Genos of the Bengpu era, Mr. Child Emperor Plus, who will be definitely belonging in the SS tier. Now in future, there will be a higher tier, but Child Emperor ain't just there yet, but he's still a very strong character. He is able to soft counter those hard-hitting ATT users, as well as providing additional crit rate for his entire row. What also makes him a great character is his very high AoE damage, being the highest we've seen in this game for the time being, as well as his doggos being able to deal constant damage and healing during the first 3 turns. In future, he isn't the best SSR Plus character, but as of right now, he is one of the strongest characters, especially if you use him alongside Sonic V2 and Gale Wind. That is going to be a very strong combo that will last until the end of the year, so you'll definitely be seeing a lot of that in those high level PvP matches. So as of right now, he definitely belongs in the highest tier. Now I'll also be going through the keepsakes of each new exclusive character. So if you do plan on getting Bengpu and Hellfire's keepsake, don't, you'll be wasting your gems and resources. Both of these characters are only used for their passives, otherwise as an individual unit they're both pretty trash. Their keepsakes won't be buffing up their passives whatsoever, just their ultimate attack, and if you really wanted to 5p them, just don't 5p them. That is absolutely terrible thing to do. So definitely they belong in the C tier, they are not important at all, you shouldn't be worrying about them one bit. Now Drive Knight's keepsake I will be putting in the A tier. So his keepsake is pretty good, his damage dealing capabilities can go from 960 to 1320% of his attack, which is a significant jump. However, there are many conditions in order to make use of his keepsake, such as being paired with ATT or AVM, as well as not dying before the end of the round, since he is hard locked as the last attacking units every round, so if he's defeated before he attacks then he is quite useless with his keepsake. Nonetheless, his keepsake definitely does belong in the A tier. Now for Bakuzan, despite being a trash unit for SSR Plus standards, he is still a decent unit. He is stronger than some LSSRs, so his keepsake will belong in the A tier, because if you do get his keepsake then he becomes a decent unit and can be stronger than most LSSRs, and he will finally be able to be useful in PvP since his ult damage can jump from 600 to 900% of his attack. However, his keepsake will either be locked behind a paywall or through the claw machine, and you shouldn't have gotten him in the first place. But his keepsake does make him significantly stronger as a trash unit, not meta breaking, but his keepsake does make him significantly stronger as a trash unit. He's not meta breaking, but he still gets somewhat usable and is quite strong during this current era, so A tier will suit him best. Now for the final 2 keepsakes that we have left over, ignoring Suiru's because he still hasn't been released yet, but with the last 2 remaining, Gale Winds definitely does belong in the top S tier, as being able to guarantee 3 stuns is amazing in both PvP and PvE, very useful in progressing through those Mirage trials. And especially in PvP, he is currently very powerful when paired up with Sonic V2. So his keepsake is definitely one of the strongest LSSR keepsakes, which will make him a very useful support character for many years to come. So his keepsake is definitely S tier because he does have great longevity with his keepsake. And finally we have Child Emperor's keepsake, which will also be belonging into the S tier. So his keepsake does make a significant difference during the ongoing Bengpu meta. He is able to shred through those shields, so you can't deny that. Now his keepsake isn't the most important keepsake out there in terms of all of the future SSR Plus characters, but as of the current meta, his keepsake is very hard hitting. So for the time being, his keepsake will also be slotted into the S tier. And also starting from now, I will also be ranking how good each SSR Plus character's second awakening is. So as of the moment, we only have 2 SSR Plus characters, so to start it off, I'll go with Bakuzan Plus, where his second awakening will be belonging in the absolute bottom, the C tier. Jesus Christ. It is horrible. It is an absolute waste of materials. Even though he can revive twice, his tenacity shield still only occurs upon his first revival. You'd much rather want to get Metal Bat's second awakening, as he will be able to revive for double the amount that Bakuzan can, as well as with Metal Bat, the battle will not end as soon as your whole team dies, unlike Bakuzan, where the battle is completely over once your whole team dies with Bakuzan. So his second awakening is utter trash. Please do not spend any more materials onto him. He will forever stay in the bottom of this tier list and just stays in the frickin' C tier forever. As of right now, Child Emperor's second awakening will be slotted into the A tier, which will be subjected to change in the future. feature. All he does is grant an extra doggo, which is great for more constant DPS and healing, so he is very meta at the moment for those high-end PvP players. Now, it's not the strongest forever, as even some high-end players who don't have Child Emperor, such as Cryon, are still able to deal with his 2 dogs, so it is not game-breaking, but always good to have when paired with Bengpu for the many months to come, especially in hero-only game modes. So his second awakening will be slotted into the A tier for the time being. And that wraps up the current rankings as of October 2023. I'd love to give shoutouts to all of my amazing YouTube members, so special thanks to my X tier members being Gamma, Blackshot, Joe, Swift, and my brand new X tier member Oliver, and my 4 Z tier members being Dragon, Red Skunk, Jared, and Solionaire. Thank you very much for all of your additional support and making this type of content possible. So anyways, that's all for today. Feel free to comment down below if you have anything from this video that you disagree with, or if you have any questions that you would want to ask me, and I will catch you all next time.